Hello, we are live.
Yeah, hi everybody. We are here for a Democrat and Republican walked into a bar. We are at Ollie's Records and Beer here in Cape Coral. We're in a little different part of Ollie's. We're trying to showcase some of the different art and cool stuff they have around here.
Very, very awesome. Definitely different paintings. Look, like some of them are selling or some of them are sold. So that's something to keep in mind if you're wanting to purchase. But very glad to be here. We had a bit of a delay last week.
I totally forgot to come. It's totally my fault. I had just moved into a new house and I was organizing and decorating and boxes, and kids were going back to school after spring break. And so
it was busy for her.
I just totally forgot. I'm so sorry, everybody.
And I was perfectly fine with it. It was just very funny for me. I was here, I was like waiting for like 30 minutes, and then we called, and then you were like, "Oh, what's going on today?"
No idea.
It just
totally
that's what happens. But that's when you're living your life and being a mom and setting up a new house like that, it's understandable.
Yeah.
But we're back again, and there's quite a bit to talk about, of course. As always. Yeah.
Where do you want to start, Sean? Wait, we got to tell everybody who we are. So this is Sean Hartman. He is our Republican side. He had ran for city council.
Briefly ran for city council back in the last election cycle. I dropped out when after the districting came in, and I ended up being outside of the district. So I had to drop out of that race, but I've been involved with Republican politics for the past few years. As you can see, I'm wearing my Byron Donalds.
He's wearing my opponent's shirt just in case.
Just in case none of you picked up that I'm a Republican.
So he's the Republican.
I am the Republican. Just want to make sure that branding was out there.
So, and I am Dr. Cindy Banyai. I was the 2-time Democratic nominee for U.S. House of Representatives here in Southwest Florida, Florida 19, against Byron Donalds the past 2 cycles. I am also somebody who's been very active in our community, nonprofit work, working also with the Democratic Party, state and local caucuses, and I am a mom of 3 kids, and I am on faculty at a university here helping the next generation of learners get excited about America and our Constitution. So, which is, I think we started off one of our episodes when Sean was talking about it, saying he was so surprised to hear a Democrat say they were excited about the Constitution. But I think that is just one of the things that highlights how disconnected we've been from each other. And that actually the reality is that Americans are proud to be Americans, proud of this country.
Yeah.
And that's why we're here in this podcast. We're working to have a dialogue.
Have these important discussions. There's quite a bit that's been going on. I feel like we sort of have to start with the elephant in the room. Which, of course, was the recent indictment that came out for Donald Trump.
The actual indictment.
The actual indictment. Right. So it was like 7-8 days of us waiting, twiddling our thumbs. We didn't know it was kind of going to happen. I'm kind of shocked it's this one. It kind of reminds me of the Al Pacino being taken out by tax fraud.
Well, they always get the mafia guys on RICO.
And so... I do think, however, and I do agree that this does come off a bit political, this case specifically. And with rule of law, I do believe that with some of the issues with Donald Trump, he needs to be held accountable, particularly with some of the other investigations going on. And he deserves a right to a fair trial. And he deserves, and if he is convicted, he should be convicted. This one, however, I mean, very simple. Basic, simple, how justice should be. With this case, however, from my understanding of it, it was 2 misdemeanors that they fused into a felony. And that's where they're trying to get him at. And it just feels like this shouldn't be the case that takes him down. And
okay, so let's back up here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because so there was the release of an indictment for Donald Trump, the announcement of a vote for the grand jury to indict Donald Trump. Actually, nobody really fully knows what is all.
Oh, that is true. Yeah, I think it's because like 31.
There was public records about who was going to be interviewed and for how long. So we know that Stormy Daniels and Michael Cohen and Attorney Pecker were all involved in this, but we don't know because it hasn't been unsealed yet.
Yeah.
So we will find out more. There's been and this is through the Manhattan District Attorney in New York
Yeah.
State. There are some people who are saying that it's potentially not only just related to the Stormy Daniels case, but it's the falsification of business records. There's been reports of 34 counts, including at least one felony. But the truth of the matter is, right now, we don't know
That's true, actually,
until
yeah.
it's unsealed. We do know that Trump's attorneys are planning on having him surrender because of the indictment for arraignment on Tuesday. So I
Yeah.
assume that we'll find out more about this on Monday and Tuesday coming up.
Which, from my understanding, they're asking for no handcuffs, but they're still going to have to do a mugshot, which I think will be very interesting to see what Donald Trump's mugshot is going to be. How he's
I heard that Donald Trump wanted the handcuff
you have
whole thing.
no, he does not. His attorney has said that they're not doing handcuffs, but again, like, this is an individual where appearance is everything. So how are they going to do it? And then are the cops going to try to mess it up for him to make it look like he looks weird or whatever? I do, and I will say, one of the big. I'm glad he's, of course, surrendering and abiding by the lawful order, because we did see, of course, Ron DeSantis saying that he wasn't going to abide by it. Now, the problem with that, and I explained this actually to a fellow conservative of mine, is if you understand the Constitution, you understand there's something in there called the extradition clause.
Mm-hmm.
So even if Ron DeSantis doesn't like it, if Kathy Hochul signed an extradition order, he would have to abide by it. And I had people tell me, well, what about nullification? Because of the policy, the concept of nullification, which for those that don't know, it was a constitutional idea originating from Jefferson and Madison that basically said that states can either ignore or completely nullify constitutional laws. And regardless of what your position is on nullification, it wouldn't apply to this, because this is specifically stated in the Constitution as a duty of the governor. So I was kind of shocked that he said that, because it is a flagrant violation of the Constitution. But thankfully, Trump is going to be
he
surrendering.
rolled it back then.
Yes. Well, good thing that he rolled it back, because again, he was proposing something that would have been a direct violation of the
It would
Constitution.
have been secession based, which I thought could have been part of the strategy. So who knows?
That's true. We have enough neo-Confederates in Florida that it could have won him some support.
For that too. So I will say that I don't think it's been political. I think that there was a grand jury, which is impartial, right?
Yeah.
And it's a lot of people. It's like 24 people on a grand jury. It does only a simple majority, so it's different than.
Yeah. And again,
well.
the district attorney is the one who is the only one presenting the evidence as well. So it does come in very skewed with a bunch of cases. This is one of the biggest issues in general with criminal justice when discussions of criminal justice reform comes out, which I definitely agree with how grand juries tend to be conducted in that way. But again, I do agree that we have to wait to see what the actual charges are before we make a final judgment. We are a party of rule of law, and I do want these investigations to properly play out. But again, if we're doing this on President Trump, we have to have, and I will give credit to Merrick Garland for having a special prosecutor for the Trump documents and the Biden documents, and that we're taking that seriously in a bipartisan level.
Yeah.
But a lot of Republicans are still upset that Hillary Clinton, not to bring her back up again, because we always bring her up, but her emails. But again, you look
Sean.
at, there is that too. I'm sorry. As Byron Donalds would say, there's a two-tiered system of justice. It appears that way sometimes.
The only two-tiered system of justice is between black and white and rich and poor.
Yeah.
So let's put it that way.
There are broad,
but her emails. And here, okay, so let me say it like this. There's a lot of other things to keep in mind too. This is just a grand jury. This is just an indictment. It's not the trial yet.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of other legal things that are going to happen. There could be other exculpatory evidence that comes out. The case could get dropped.
There's things that we probably don't even know about it as well. That's the other part of it. We only know what's been covered, and we've gotten conflicting reports from people who, nothing official, and nothing that a lot of the sources are people we can't really trust. So
you don't know. There's been no evidence. Just actually like when Trump had made the claim now 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. This point, it was a couple weeks ago, but he said, "Oh, I'm going to be arrested on Tuesday," and then it didn't happen.
Yeah, it was about 2
Um,
weeks ago.
Yeah, that was another thing where we didn't have any other evidence except for what Trump had said.
Yeah.
So I think it's fair to say everybody should wait and see, and everybody should see how it actually plays out, because a conviction is much different than an indictment.
And that's where I think, I don't know how you're going to get a conviction out of this particular case. I think that the other cases, I think, are the ones that are more concerning, at least legally, because they deal with either national security or the very system of the republic that we have.
Yeah.
I do see we have a comment about 34 more charges than Hunter Biden has. That is
John.
Well,
true. But say hi to John. So John is actually running for Congress from Colorado.
Oh, well, welcome.
So hi,
happy to see you. Happy to have you here, John. Yeah, but I will say, I do also agree. We just not to sound like a broken record, but I do think there are serious issues when it comes to Hunter Biden.
Please, God, take him, arrest him, do whatever. Because if it will get Republicans to stop talking about it, I will give you Hunter Biden just to get back to governance discussions. Please,
that's a fair
take
point.
him. Prosecute him.
If
there's something, find it, do it, because I'm so damn tired.
Well, the issue really
just talking about it.
The issue isn't necessarily Hunter Biden, though. It's how much of the money possibly went to Joe Biden, and that's what's being investigated right now. And we don't know. It's all speculation.
I mean, honestly, that whole system is the pretty classic, let's call it elite capture type of thing that happens where other countries are trying to get favor, and so friends, family members, anybody that they think that can be somewhere in the orbit, they're giving them high-paying jobs for things that they're not qualified for. And I'm not saying it's right.
No, it definitely
I'm not
isn't.
saying it's right, but it's very much the way that every government administration has run, even the Trump administration and the Biden administration going back to Obama.
Of course.
It's because there is people at the top levels of the government are wealthy folks, they're elite folks, and they all know each other, and their family members are people who are they try to buy influence from. And but it's really, I don't know, it's just another way to get a curry influence. I mean, you could talk about all sorts of different types of money in politics, and I would actually like to see all of that out of our system.
Oh, of course. Frankly. No, I would actually agree with you there, and I think it's with what you say, like the thing with these quote unquote elites, that are in control, if you will, is that their power doesn't come from their money. Their power comes from their connections.
Sure.
It's their relationships And so, you're right. Is these businesses like Burisma or these Chinese companies, hired Hunter Biden, just like you had situations with the Saudis using Trump hotels and all these different organizations doing that. And I mean, I don't know who in the Obama family people were hiring, but Bush family, I'm sure it happened.
Saying, I think Malia, the older daughter, just got like an internship at New York Times or something along those lines.
But now he's not president anymore, so it's not like they can
but the Hunter Biden thing happened after Joe Biden was vice president.
But he still had the possibility of becoming president.
I don't think anybody realistically thought that.
At 2012, in 2012, in that 2012-2016 period, there was a time where they thought he was going to run against Hillary.
I will say this honestly, 100% honestly, as a Democrat, I don't think anybody post-Obama really truly thought Joe Biden was going to run for anything.
Oh, no, I thought he was.
He kind of came into the fray after 2016, because really he should have run in 2016.
He really should have. Yeah, I agree.
If it was a thing, right? But that was like Hillary's time and blah blah blah. So
it was not only that, he had just lost Beau, and he was dealing with that. I think I was speculating that he was ready to go. Beau asked him to do it, and then he passed away, and then he just didn't have the emotional. But that takes a lot out of you to run for office in general, let alone the highest office in the land.
Yeah.
So,
but I mean, that's what I'm saying. So I think that everybody, by the time 2020 rolled around, it was kind of like
nostalgia type of thing.
Well, it's like I think that he stood up to run because he thought he had a good shot, which obviously that is what happened. But because he could be that kind of like calming intermediary figure amongst Democrats,
a back to normalcy type of situation,
right? And I don't think anybody in the Democratic field was like, I don't think anybody right now is super stoked on him. I'm not gonna lie.
I was looking through my old photos on my phone, and there's a meme that I downloaded when he got the nominee, and it's Joe Biden is the nominee, and it's Bob from Bob's Burgers. He says, "Fine, but I'm complaining the whole time." And I'm like, it's so true. It's like there's so many people. It's like I'm just okay for Biden. And
Listen,
like,
the criticism of Biden had been in the past that he was the half loaf senator, right? I think we talked about that before, right?
I don't think on this one.
So
No.
half loaf, he had been called the half loaf senator because he was the guy that would make a compromise, right?
Mm.
He would come in and he would meet you in the middle, which really, like from a governance perspective,
That's what you need. It's,
sounds
you
pretty
know,
good. But in the kind of political space that we're in,
yeah.
it's very unsexy. Like,
No, it
nobody
isn't.
wants
I mean, the fact
guy.
that he had any sort of relationship with Strom Thurmond, he was being beaten down by that in the debates.
Well, listen,
You
I worked for Spencer Abraham, and Biden's office was right across the hall.
Mhm.
He was a
And
nice
Spencer
fellow.
Abraham was a Republican.
Yeah,
He was a
Spencer
pretty
A-
conservative Republican,
Yes,
actually.
he was. That's who I got my political career started with, and we were friendly.
Didn't he get like Secretary of Energy?
He was
or
Secretary
something?
of Energy
Yeah.
He lost his reelection,
That would be why.
and then he got so Bush
The
appointed him to Secretary of Energy.
Consolation prize.
It's a pretty decent consolation.
It
prize.
is. It is. I remember
He
when.
lost to Debbie Stabenow.
Oh yeah, is that? And now didn't she recently?
Now
retire?
she just
She's-
retired. Yep. So now Michigan's got a whole interesting thing going on. But point being, so Biden was the half loaf senator. Now he's the half loaf president. It's like, he's kind of made these compromises. He's doing an okay job. Everything's pretty even keeled, but like nobody's super excited.
Yeah, no, and then every time obviously when he makes some of these compromises, he like ticks off the progressives too. Like,
Oh yeah.
we had this situation. I think he opened up. Was it Alaska somewhere?
Yep,
in Alaska?
the Willow Project.
Okay, so yeah, the Willow Project, which of course I support because it leads to. See, but again, we need more energy. We need to lower it.
We have plenty of tar sands, but anyway.
Anyway, the point. Obviously, we disagree on that issue, but
there was
the
a big
progressives were
backtrack
upset.
for the
But they're
progressives.
yeah, and so it's understandable why
We have some friends
we have some friends
here.
coming in.
Actually,
Yeah,
this is a great opportunity to shout out to our audience today. We have Sean's grandparents are here. Thanks for joining us.
my grandparents became fans of the show, and then
So we have some
Cindy
other
and
friends
AO.
coming in. Hey, and my daughter Evie's over there having her own concert
as
and
always,
dance.
as Evie always does.
And we do hope that on another Sunday, you will come and join us.
Mm-hmm.
We're here from 4 at Ollie's Beer and Records. Shout out to Ollie's.
Yep, as always.
I'm drinking today a raspberry peach Bellini sour. It's
Mm.
really delicious. They have a ton of great stuff on tap. They have sandwiches. Evie's a big fan of the s'more sandwiches. So if you need a bite to eat,
very good.
I know they have a comedy workshop this evening too. That's going to be really fun. So if you want to learn how to do some improv comedy, come on, head over here to Ollie's. And big announcement, not next weekend because it's Easter Sunday.
Yes, the weekend after.
But-
we were announcing this weekly.
Yes.
Yes, we are going to be doing after Easter Sunday. This Easter Sunday, we're both faithful Christians, so we're going to be in our respective churches. After that, though, every Sunday from here on in, we'll be doing it every week, which I'm very excited for.
Right? Yep.
I enjoy
There's
these.
so much stuff, and the
There-
campaign's coming.
Oh, of course. That's the other thing we have to talk about. We have obviously all this Trump indictments is growing the field, and we got an exciting, super exciting.
Wow, talk
new-
about half loaf. Sorry. go ahead.
I'm being sarcastic, of course. Asa Hutchinson, who you may not know, is the former governor of Arkansas. He is who was the previous before Sarah Huckabee Sanders. He's there from 2015, 2023. He was Bush's DEA agent. He looks like every TV show version of a president.
Yeah, that's
And he is
exactly
running
right.
for president. And
along
he's
with Nikki Haley.
along with Nikki
in the
Haley.
Republican presidential
Nikki
primary.
Haley and Vivek something or other. He's the guy who wrote this book called Woke Inc. And he's running for president.
He did announce. didn't
He did
Okay.
announce. And so for some reason he's running. Asa Hutchinson's running. And there's the first person apparently to announce is this guy, Corey Stapleton. He's the Montana Secretary of State. He has an exploratory committee currently. So he's also running. And obviously Ron may be announcing, supposedly going to be announcing after the legislative session. I do believe he did sign that law.
Yeah, so
that
give us
allow-
an update on that.
Yeah, so we have a resign or run law that
Mhm.
quite frankly, I don't know why we have it. I don't think we should have something like that, but we did until Governor DeSantis decided he may run for president. And so the legislature decided to pass the law to repeal it so that way he can run for president. Obviously, yeah.
It did pass.
Wait, can I raise my hand?
Yes, go ahead.
Did it pass?
I-
Because I thought it did not pass, that you tried to have it pass, but it did
Oh,
not.
I heard it passed. Okay, I'll have to check
Well,
on
I
that
could
then.
be wrong.
I could be wrong
We could
too.
all be wrong.
So let's not
But
declare
I do
anything
know that
officially.
it was that he tried to push it through when all the hubbub
Yeah.
of the Trump indictment came out. So that was kind of the
Yes, that's what I
assertion
heard. That's
that he was kind of like trying to slide it in there. Because from what I understand in Tallahassee, that it's controversial on both sides. Obviously, Democrats are not going to be on board because they don't want him to run for president. But
Yeah.
I think that there's also other Republicans that don't want to see people kind of eating up the space, which I
and they
think is
don't
what
want. Yeah,
happened.
you have the Trump supporters out there who don't want to give him that opportunity.
Right.
Right. And then what happens if they don't pass it? And then will he still run, or will he stay as governor and wait till 2028? What's going to be his calculation there? So that's what I'm very curious about. There's also been a lot in legislature, of course, with things getting passed and everything. But again, Asa Hutchinson now in the race. I think super exciting. We're going all in for Hutchinson
I'm
2024.
just through the roof.
Asa 2024. Yeah, I
don't
think
know.
him and Marianne Williamson need to get on a ticket as an independent.
I haven't announced.
Oh, Marianne Williamson announced for the
Yeah, the
Democratic
Democrat.
primary.
They can run as a unification team.
Oh Lord, she's
Uh,
known for espousing the power of love.
Which we need in
politics.
politics. I'll admit
which,
we'll need
I
in
mean,
politics.
I mean, it's so very quaint. But apparently, and I didn't know a heck of a lot about her until her run in 2020,
Mm.
which was self-funded largely. I guess she made a lot of money as an author, this kind of self-help,
Yeah, she
self-love
wrote
guru.
something in miracles or something, a lesson in miracles. And
Basically, she's got her start with Oprah, much like
Yeah.
Dr. Oz.
and she was like a spiritual guru to all these different celebrities.
Yeah, super cool.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Like
she sure made the debates exciting.
Yeah, she really did. Oh my God,
They're
those were
random,
like.
like-
I really want there to be like there has to be a Republican Marianne Williamson, and I just want to see just one of our conservatives with into crystals and hippie stuff.
I don't know if anybody needs that. So, okay. So that's kind of what's going on with the Trump indictment and the updates with the presidential primaries. Now, I know that when we were talking last week, there's a couple other things that you wanted to talk about that were happening locally related to access for folks with disabilities.
So actually, I will say, and I do applaud Lee Tran for responding a little bit quicker than I expected. I don't feel like the issue has been resolved though, but I want to explain what sort of happened. So when I was coming here for the recording this episode last week, I had because of my autism, there's a lot of coordination issues that come with that, and one of those is with the bike rack. There's a way that the bike rack can be done where you can just lift it up. If they lift the bus up, or there's a way where they have to like move it all around, and the second part becomes a lot more complicated because of all the tasks involved. And it's not just me; other people with different disabilities would have this issue. And I have explained to Bob Cody, who's our Lee Tran director, twice about this issue, and so far the issue had been resolved after that second time. But I had an individual when I was putting my bike up, he had to come out to help me. And he said, "Why do you guys always have to make this so difficult?" And I was very offended. And I called Bob because I do have his number. And I sent them over an email. And they did respond back to me. But the response was, we told them not to do it. We're going to let them know again not to do this. And I understand why they can't terminate the individual because they didn't hear the conversation where it was outside. And of course, you have labor unions and sort of the agreements that are there. But I have asked them to at least move him out of Cape Coral because I do not feel comfortable riding the buses right now because I was essentially verbally assaulted by this individual. And I and other disabled individuals have a right to feel safe on buses, on these public transportation. I have yet to receive a response. That was a week ago. I am considering finding a lawyer or some sort of legal counsel and filing a federal complaint because I believe that will at least make them understand that I am serious. Because the fact of the matter is if this happens to me and I'm able to speak out about it, how many other neurodiverse individuals or disabled individuals is this happening to that aren't speaking out? And so I want them to take this seriously. And I have, I know Bob personally. I have it again, like I said, I have his personal phone number. We've communicated a few times. So and I know he's not the type of person who supports this, but I also know, like with bureaucracies, their hands can be tied. And in case you do something like with a lawyer, they're not going to listen to you. So I am considering taking any appropriate legal action. I'm hesitant to do so because I don't want to sue the county, but whatever needs to be done to make sure that this doesn't continue to happen is something I'm been wanting to focus on, that I'm going to be doing.
Sorry, I'm smiling because like your justice heart and your fiscally conservative heart are fighting.
I know, right? Right? I don't want to cost the taxpayers money,
But you want justice.
I want
Okay.
justice.
I was
I
gonna
know.
say, I'm really sorry that happened to you. I really think that it's important that we have adequate accommodations for people on public transportation, and anybody who's in that type of service job shouldn't be talking inappropriate to people whose job they're there to help. So I applaud your efforts of taking the next step, because a lot of people don't. But I think that this is why, and I will pull out my anti-fiscal conservative heart and say, I think this is why we need to invest in having proper training, right? Because this could be a training issue within the organization, but also making sure that we have the right type of technology to accommodate folks with any type of disabilities. I mean, we could also be this could be eliminated by an easier system as well. So I think we have a public interest to make sure that we are making the appropriate investments.
Yeah. Well, with training, I would absolutely agree. We need the proper training, and we should
maybe
invest.
like a DEI training.
Oh, dear God.
Because actually inclusivity includes folks with disabilities.
It does. No, you're right. I've actually never really had an issue with DEI as itself. Where I've had issue is how it's sometimes been implemented, and sometimes it just gets implemented in ways that just makes it like, oh, because you're privileged, you should feel shame or sorry. And there's a way that we can educate about these very real issues that different individuals, such as myself as a disabled individual, or different minorities face, without shaming other people or making them, exactly. That's sort of the, and mind you, there are stuff that, regardless of what they're teaching, we're going to have to feel bad about it because it's a part of our history. I think there is anytime I read about different instances of Black histories, particularly in the 20th century. There was one that I found out very recently, how there is a coup. The only coup in American history was in this city in either North Carolina or Tennessee. I don't remember which one, but they elected a Black city council, and the white people rose up and lynched them and took the city government back. And it's the only coup on U.S. soil in American history. And you read about this type of stuff. Rosewood, I think it was. I think it was Rosewood, but I may be wrong. But, I read about this stuff and I get upset, as people naturally would. But at the same time, we have progressed since then.
Sure.
And we still need to focus on that and what more needs to be done. I don't think we should throw the baby out with the bathwater when it comes to our American traditions, but we do have to be honest about our history.
Yeah. And I honestly I think that there's a lot of disinformation around this, especially around the discussions of critical race theory and things like that, because nobody's going in and saying, oh, this is bad, or you should feel shame and guilt around this. But a lot of it is shifting away from what had been what many considered a whitewash narrative to include more pieces of information about history that were excluded because they weren't deemed to be important. I mean, and this includes women and Native Americans and, people who had been enslaved, and a lot of people who were overlooked, and frankly, other types of immigrants at the turn of the century.
Of course.
The
reason we have Columbus Day is really because of the discrimination of Italian immigrants.
Right. So there was a whole other thing, right?
That's a whole other. We'll probably have a Columbus/Indigenous Peoples Day episode. Anyway, no. what was I going to
It
say?
was a different fight and a different time. But yeah,
Yeah.
I just think that people are misled to think about it. And
What I think it is I kind of look at it where I do think you have like bad apples with certain teachers who do engage in what we would call indoctrination, or promoting whatever sort of agenda they're wanting to promote. And there are other teachers who are very good at trying to keep those biases out of the classroom. And I think that again, it really comes down less about what is being taught but more on how it's being taught. And as if that's where I think the focus should be on, as opposed to, oh, okay, this is, I think there was that AP African American history class where they don't want to talk about these specific issues. Well, unfortunately, when it comes to education, we have to teach people, as much as we can. And I am a very pro education individual. I think that in order to have a free society, we need to have a well-informed society. And so making sure that people know these type of things, and these different theories, and that's really all they're social theories. They're concepts and ideas. I had the opportunity at UCF. I had a political ideology professor that taught me liberalism, conservatism, socialism, but also fascism and different ideologies that you wouldn't think about wanting to learn about. And we have a right to learn about these theories and teach people them so that way they can make their own decisions and can be free thinkers.
Yeah.
But again, it is how it is taught. And I think it's more, you have teachers who are bad apples and they should be root them out, kind of like the way most Republicans think about the police issue.
Okay, I
where
was
it's
gonna
like,
say, since you're getting in that, 'cause I was like, but why is the solution for teachers to make blanket rules
that's my point.
and regulations on that? But if we have bad apples in the police department, we don't want to do that.
That was sort of what I was getting at. Exactly. It's like, look, we as Republicans, and mind you, I do actually believe in police reform because they're supposed to serve us and they have a specific role that involves life or death scenarios. And I don't think we shouldn't defund the police, but we should actually provide them more funding, like you said, for training and for better security and personnel. And I don't think it's a bad thing to bring in social workers as well, because right now cops are acting as the social workers.
Yeah,
in these
they're
cases.
the first line in Florida,
And so,
in particular for mental health service actions.
but I think that would mean more funding for the police, not less funding for the police. But at the same time, we should have reform, and we should make sure that the police are serving and protecting the community, and that people feel safe around them. And that's a role of government and communities. But again, that's how Republicans treat the issue of police is how I think we should treat this issue of education. Is we have bad apples and teachers who will teach an agenda, not teach information.
See, that would be great if any of that were actually happening, but that's not
Yeah,
actually
it is.
the point.
No, it is happening.
So here's the thing. I just was on a panel with other professors this past week. Future You can check out. I'll post it on my Facebook page tomorrow. And this was actually out of Michigan State University. It was all other professors from different places in the country. One from North Carolina, me from FGCU, and then another from Florida Southwestern State here. Different departments, and it's kind of known within the higher ed instructors is that we're not indoctrinating. Like we can't get students to show up to class. We can't get them to turn in their homework. If we can indoctrinate them to anything, we would be indoctrinating them to that. It would there's nobody that comes in with a type of political agenda. There are different teachers teaching different things. And there's some people who are teaching things that can be construed as controversial. But here's the thing. The vast majority of students have the ability to choose whether or not they want to engage in that material.
That's
and
true.
even within that, you can't indoctrinate people to think about things that they don't want to think about. They can just not show up. And they do. And that's what students do. So we had this conversation. Check out that panel interview I'll post. But I just don't even know if there are that many bad apples is the problem.
So
because there's just not people who are responding to that. And on top of that, there's no way to actually enforce some of this stuff.
that's true.
Because this is not about actually governance or enforcement. This is culture war, red meat. This is Ron DeSantis laying a pathway for his presidency. And I don't think they have any intention of really doing some of these things other than to kind of do them to
It's
do that.
performative. It's definitely
performative.
performative. I will say where I do agree with you in the sense that you're not, if you are indoctrinating, you're not effective. Because, and I will say,
Because Christy McLaughlin ran against me. Christy McLaughlin, for those of you that don't know, in 2020, one of the Republican contestants for Florida 19 was
Who ran
Christy
against
McLaughlin.
who ran against Byron?
Byron was my student, like my prize student, by the way, like one of my
Oh wow.
very favorite prize students. I had actually made an amazing video on human trafficking as extra credit that she didn't need because she was like 120 points above what she
Oh
needed.
my god.
And she made this amazing video that I showed to every single class every semester because it was such a great video. And I said, here's an example of an extra credit that you could do on a global issue, blah, blah, blah. I was teaching global issues. And so it's so funny in 2020 when she announced her candidacy, I'm like, that's my student, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, and not only is she a Republican, but she is now very, very
Yeah.
extreme right.
Yeah, she's conservative
like,
for sure.
She ran for 22. She ran for one on the east side of the state
Oh, did
in
she?
2022. Yeah, she ran in the primary. But I mean, she's tight with Roger Stone and
Yeah.
all these other folks. But yeah,
She's
if
a
I
part
was
of
good
that
at
one.
indoctrination, then
Yeah, I
Christy
was
probably
gonna
wouldn't have
say.
run against me.
I was going to say, and I will say from my experience in college, being a conservative in college, the indoctrination was coming from the fellow students. It was all of the students around me who are progressive and who were with all these different organizations, and it was them who were bringing these issues to the forefront. And so it wasn't the teachers, but I will say, and where I do disagree with you, is I do believe there are teachers and professors. I've had some myself, where I have had professors who, I had one professor, for example, a Middle Eastern studies professor. There were question on the test. One of the questions on the test was what the capital of Israel was. Now, the capital of Israel is Jerusalem, but there was no Jerusalem there. It was only Tel Aviv. This was before the embassy was moved, and we had a huge debate about that. But that's one example. There was another one. I'm not even going to get into it. But the point is these. It's not indoctrination. Indoctrination is not how I would describe it. But yes, they are teaching to an agenda, and they're promoting, doing it based on.
Professors have a paradigm. They usually lay it right out for you in
Yeah,
any of
something-
the things that they say. Our
Crystal-
audience has a comment.
Audience
Crystal,
comment.
do you want to slide over here and say something?
Yeah.
Yes.
You might. I think you could get in behind Sean here and say something. Now this is Crystal Siscon, and she is otherwise known as Sean's lefty bestie.
Lefty bestie.
Just proving
Regular fit.
once again that Republicans and Democrats can be friends.
Yes.
All right, let's see if she can.
Are you sure? Do you want to sit in front of me? I'm shorter than you. That way.
I'll let her take over for a moment.
No, I don't want to take over. I just
Well,
know.
no, because then
What'd
it's
you want
two
to say?
Democrats.
Yeah.
You can't go
Well,
far,
no,
Sean.
like I don't want to be, but yeah, like can I just be like Crystal for a second and say first I want to stop this talk about indoctrination for a second because I feel that the word is being used incorrectly.
Okay.
Now, both of you are very educated humans.
Mm.
I am not. I am a product of the Florida education system back when all of the things and the changes that we're making now were in place. I went to school before they were desegregated. I did not receive proper sex education.
Mm.
I have traveled the country and I have found myself lacking in what other children got as their regular education.
Mm.
This is a privilege that we are taking away from our children. First of all, I want to uplift that because this is so creaky. I want to uplift that because everybody thinks that they're protecting their
Mm.
children from this indoctrination, but what they're really doing is not educating their children in reality.
Mhm.
So if anybody's indoctrinating, let's look at this.
Mm.
If you were Socrates or somebody and you said, "What do you think about this?" and you listened, is that indoctrination?
No.
No, that is enlightenment.
Mm.
So here's the issue. Nobody is indoctrinating anyone. They're giving truth and facts and enlightenment. Indoctrination is saying we can't teach something. We can't
Mhm.
allow someone to know about something. We're going to keep somebody in the dark. That's indoctrination. Can we agree on
Yeah,
that?
we can agree on that. I
Thank
can
you.
definitely agree with
I
that.
needed to uplift that. Thank you.
That's kind of why I was trying to shift away and say agenda as
Now,
opposed to indoctrination.
I was going to say, at some point here, Crystal Siscon is going to have her own podcast
Mhm.
that she's going to launch that's ready to rock and roll. And we're going to be so excited when
Yep.
that happens
Soon.
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 So I think that's a good place to close out that discussion.
Yeah.
So what other things were on your mind that you were looking at this week? I mean, I know we covered Trump and the presidential primaries. We covered a little bit about higher ed and education here in Florida.
Yes. I mean, I know we have a lot of. I really, with the legislation that's coming up, part of me really wants to see what gets passed and what doesn't get passed.
Yeah, me too.
Before I really comment further on it, there's a lot, and I did want to say this because I had the opportunity to read through some of the trans bills that were being proposed, and they are coming off strongly too far, in my opinion, with some of the things that they are proposing, especially when it comes to the issue of parental rights and government control. They are there's proposals to take away kids from their parents if they take them to a drag show. There's proposals to take kids away from parents if they support their transitioning. They're now wanting to censor the existence of trans people into high school, and exactly. We're just it blows my mind. Yeah. Anyway, so this is not. I am a Republican because I believe in freedom and individual liberty. And regardless of your personal or religious beliefs, when it comes to the LGBTQ plus community, one, trans people exist, and two, and more importantly, they have the right to exist. And I think we can have very serious discussions and issues on a wide variety of issues when it comes to this topic, such as what sport a trans woman will go into. I still personally have questions about puberty blockers and when's the appropriate age for that. And we can have these general discussions, but we have to at least start with the basic fact that trans people have a right to exist, and that just like everyone else in this country, they have an inalienable right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And I'm not saying that for the applause. I'm not saying, feel like people are going to be like, oh, he's gone woke or whatever. No, this is for people who don't know. And I know. But I told her I was going to try to say something about this because no, I won't go into too many details because they don't want me to. But I had a family member who came out as trans to me about a year ago, and so after that happened, I of course asked them a bunch of questions about how it works to try to get a better understanding, and I did my own research on it. And what I've discovered is that we don't really know what causes someone to become trans. There's a debate of how much of it is nature, how much of it is nurture, because there is an aspect of it that is prenatal hormones, because it's sex hormones that is in some way causing these situations. I feel like we don't know enough. I feel like we need more research and information about this. But I think that with Republicans, I don't think for most Republicans, it's not coming out of a position of hate, just a position of ignorance.
Yep.
And I know you'd probably disagree with me on this, or maybe you.
No, I agree.
And I think
there's a lot of disinformation. I think people are using this as a wedge issue because of the lack of information and lack of knowledge. And it seems very strange to folks. I understand.
And of course, it can be very confusing to a lot of people. Again, as I've mentioned multiple times on this podcast, I'm on the autism spectrum, so we have a general difficulty with understanding social behaviors and social cues. So you come in with, now you have 2 genders, now we have 3 genders, now there's 64 genders. Then there's people like us who's like, whoa, hang on, I just got through with 3. But so there's obviously situations, obviously for a lot of people it's confusing. And I do agree that, it is something that a lot of people have to get used to. But again, the trans people have a right to exist. And we have to start at that basic concept. And again, we don't know when it comes to trans children, we don't know what causes it. And I think there are some questions and some discussions we need to have about when these type of.
We should never be discussing that.
Okay, so Crystal disagrees.
I was going to say, let's get back to the freedom component.
We'll get back where I will say again.
Here's the thing: freedom, and there's been a lot of folks, especially that have come out for medical freedom. but they're willing, they don't want to be vaccinated, but they're willing to take away
Someone.
a parent or an adult's right to transition their body.
Yeah,
And that's very, very hypocritical.
agree.
And
Yeah,
at this point, too, there is no one that's qualified to make a judgment on a healthcare situation except for the healthcare experts and that person or their family.
it's interesting when the issue of Obamacare was that big of an issue. The big talking point was we don't want government to get involved between the decisions of an individual and their doctor.
Absolutely.
And that's what we would be doing in some of these decisions, or the
And
stuff
with
that's been going
abortion?
with the medical board issue. Abortion's a different issue.
No, it's not.
To me, it is.
Abortion is healthcare. But again, it doesn't matter for you.
Yeah.
Because this
Well,
is
there
not
are many
something that's
there are many
on-
pro-life women, and abortion is a separate issue because
it's
it has
not. It's
to.
body autonomy.
It-
It's body
I know
autonomy,
it, yeah,
and it's freedom. It's medical freedom. And if you
And-
can't say good for the goose, but not good for
No,
the gander.
I
And
don't-
That's what it really comes down to.
Once you
is-
have an unborn entity in there, it's not just your body, though. It's another
Yeah,
entity.
but it's not. And that was the whole viability thing that went in front of the Supreme Court in 1994.
Mm.
And you cannot, and this is the standard that everybody has to keep in their mind.
Mm.
You cannot compel somebody to give part of their body to save somebody else's life.
That
you
is.
can't give somebody a kidney. You can't force somebody to do that.
I have been.
So even if you want to take
Mm.
the life standing, the heart rate standing,
Mm.
you cannot force somebody to give up their life for another person, and that's the crux of body autonomy.
Yeah, and I will.
And
Yeah, I will.
so this goes back to medical freedom. This
Mm.
goes back to medical privacy. This goes back to that Obamacare argument of no one in the government should be between a person and their provider, and that is true.
Yeah,
And
no,
it
I
should be
understand.
the person and their provider. And that doesn't matter if we're talking about, things related to trans children. It shouldn't be about breast augmentation, whether that's from cancer treatment or transitioning. And it shouldn't be for abortion or healthcare or ectopic pregnancy or any of
Disagree
those
there,
other
but-
things. Because here's the thing. The same thing that happens to a woman's body, if she has, let's say, for instance, a miscarriage, let's say, for instance, she had IVF and only wanted to keep 2 or 3 out of 10 that took, that's a DNC. That is
Yeah.
the same as a surgical abortion. So people don't always have that in their mind, that if you legislate against that, you are taking away other standards of care for different people as well.
Well, I feel like if we were going to do that, then we would make clear exemptions for those
But they
standards.
don't, and they
Yeah,
haven't.
And that's
it's
where,
not included.
and you mentioned this actually on your Juice podcast, which I thought was very accurate, both with these trans bills and this abortion bill. We write bills very vaguely
Yeah.
in Tallahassee, and that creates a lot of problems for us. Like you had
Right.
when you had the situation, the viral video out of all the books out of the library, obviously that's not what the law actually said, but because the law was written so ambiguously, everyone just like, oh, we don't know what to do, so we're going to pull it all out. And so we have a real problem with our party with the law of unintended consequences and
Yeah.
understanding that. What I will say about abortion, because
Hold on, I want you to put a pin on that because I want to talk about vagueness in laws first.
Okay, yes,
Then
let's
come
do
back to
that.
abortion. So if we want to get out of that Mobius strip, there's a few things we have to do.
Mhm.
One is make sure that things that are going through the Florida legislature are for the purpose of governing and not making political red meat statements. These fly-by-night things that are put out there so, to look good or to rile the other side, to own the libs or whatever,
Mhm.
is how we get garbage legislation and causes problems. Fiscal conservatives should be worried about this
Oh,
because
yeah.
you're talking about waste in the public sphere, whether you're talking about healthcare or schools or, tort, right?
Yeah.
Because if a law is vague, you are wasting money and time in the public realm. 2,
Yeah.
and you're going to hate this one, but you're going to love it. Okay. It's we need to eliminate term limits. And this is why, because people in the legislature do not have the knowledge of how to write appropriate bills.
Mm.
They half the time don't even know what the Florida Constitution says, let alone the federal Constitution. So they're constantly passing legislation that has been deemed unconstitutional. And it's that institutional knowledge that is lost when we have term limits. On top of the fact that term limits create a pipeline of individuals schools that are funded and beholden to elite donors and corporations who can keep them in there.
Mm.
And I was going to say, I knew you were going to hate this, but
I
this
was
is true.
like,
So that's the
oh,
part of
no,
the
I'm
reason
a big
we've
term
had
limits guy.
well, right.
There's some
So,
fair
well, your
argument.
term
I mean,
limits,
but
your term limits because the idea is like we want to get new people in there. I love it. But to get new people in there, you've traded one evil for the next.
that's
now
fair.
you're getting trash legislation and corporate elite capture
You're-
of the legislature.
You make fair arguments. I'm still for term limits, but you make fair arguments. No, and it's definitely, I agree. You get amateurs every 8 years coming into Tallahassee every 8 years or so. So it makes sense that they're not you're going in. They don't know what they're doing because they're just doing it. It's the next big thing for whatever their step in
It's
their
just
career
somebody
is.
they're just moving the pawns.
Exactly.
Moving the pawns on the board to the next spot.
Can I talk about go back to the trans rights thing? That's
Yeah.
happening with
You
Go
wanna
ahead.
Come over here.
Honestly, I really
Get close. Let her get close to the mic. I figure she's gonna say something. And pop in. We only have one mic, guys, so that's why you have to subscribe
this one.
on bigmouthmediafl.com.
So we can
We're going
find more
to,
mics.
we're going to every week, so that's going to go up. So here's the deal: you want to get a good deal, you get your subscription to DVR in a Bar this week or next week, because that'll only be $2.99 a month. And if you get that year-long subscription of $29.99 a year, you'll lock in that for the whole rest of the year. Because afterwards, it's going to go up to $4.99 a month because we got to do it every week.
save money now.
So
Yeah.
help us get this second mic. So trans
Thank
rights.
you. I need a mic. I wanted to really appeal to the people who are just listening, who don't understand what's really going on with this parental bill rights and transgender and gender nonconforming children. I really want to talk about the fact that this is not a Democrat or a Republican issue. These are human beings. These are children who have parents. The government is not supposed to come in and tell me what to do with my body, my family, period. That doesn't matter how I vote or what party I affiliate with. We talk about like the basic premise of American freedom. How can we truly be free if the government owns our body or our choices? And then to come in and tell us what we can and cannot do with our children? I mean, think about that. That I am a human. I have a child. No matter what I believe, no matter how I vote, I'm a mother with children, and there are mothers with children all over the state panicking right now. I need the mothers to think about this. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I do want to say, because that's something we've been talking about quite a bit, and she's absolutely right that at the end of the day, these policies against trans people, they're supposed to help children. That's what the Republicans are saying they're for, but they're not going to. The effects are going to be negative. And especially with this type of issue where we don't know enough scientifically about it, we shouldn't be moving forward with these type of legislation and these type of issues. That's my opinion on it. It's definitely not the mainstream Republican opinion. I'm definitely going against the grain there, but it's a very personal issue for me. Like I said, I had a relative come out as trans, and it helped me understand it better. But even before that, I lived with a couple of trans people, so I've always been a pro LGBTQ plus conservative. But me understanding sort of what these individuals go through and the process that they have to go through, it's really helped me understand that this isn't the right way to go. And so I definitely oppose it. But yeah, thank you, Crystal, for explaining it, as a mother experiencing these concerns, because I think people need to understand the gravity of the situation. Think about it this way. If you're a Republican, how would you feel if we were under a Democratic administration and they said, if you have a gun in your house, you can't have children and we're going to take away your kids away? This is essentially the same thing, where you're saying that a parent does not have a right to their child, which was the very thing we were fighting of in this election cycle. I quite frankly feel deceived by some of my fellow Republicans by them proposing these legislations that blatantly go against parental rights. It's hypocritical. You campaigned on this issue, and I supported that issue. But now we're going into parents can't take their kids to this thing, or parents can't do this. If we are for parents' rights, we're for parents' rights across the board, or we're not for parents' rights.
Mm.
It's plain and simple.
Okay.
There is one more bill that I think it did pass that I am excited for, that I know you won't be excited for.
All right, which one is
That
that?
is the constitutional carry bill.
Oh,
That
yeah,
is
that's what I was
has
gonna
been a
say.
big one for me. I have actually been a big time supporter of a constitutional carry, because as someone
Because
with
you
a
don't know the data on how many people are going to
well,
die.
well, again, and I brought this up recently because there is a fight apparently between Jamal Bowman and Thomas Massey on the House floor
Mhm.
about the issue of gun deaths and gun violence.
Mhm.
And what I really want people to understand is it's not even that Republicans don't want to do anything. It's because of the Constitution, we generally can't, because of the Second Amendment. Now, there are times, and we have had Republicans propose and get involved with constitutional gun safety legislation. Pat Toomey, John Cornyn, there's been proposals, but the Second Amendment is very clear as what it says and what it says. And I've been more of a supporter of constitutional carry for a different reason. Because of my autism, I don't really get the right to own a gun. Now, mind you, I still won't have the right to own a gun, but with again
What?
from my understanding, I still won't have a right
Because
to
you're autistic?
because of hospitalizations. So because of when you get Baker acted, I think it's especially after the Marjorie Taylor, not Marjorie Taylor
Marjorie
Greene,
Stoneman
the
Douglas.
yes, not the the Marjorie Taylor Greene Act.
That was a little slip. That was a slip.
Freudian slip if there ever was one. I'm wearing her work husband's shirt, so anyway, but Marjorie Stoneman Douglas bill, it's like
Yeah.
there's a 10-year period after you are Baker acted where you lose that right, which I believe itself is unconstitutional, because the only way you have the ability, you should lose your rights, is through due process of a law, through a court of law, which that doesn't happen with a lot of mentally ill people. And I'm not saying that we should let people who are emotionally unstable have guns, but not all people with mental illness are emotionally unstable. And so for me, the reason I'm so pro Second Amendment, if you will, pro gun, is because so often, anytime there's a shooting and it's someone with mental illness, we're the scapegoats.
Sure.
Even Marco Rubio, I did not vote for Marco Rubio in his recent election. I went libertarian. And the reason I did is because Marco Rubio, when I emailed him about this, emailed me back and said, quote, "We should keep guns out of the hands of the mentally ill." That is ableism. That is an ableist statement. And that's why I feel so passionately about this, and why I've been a supporter of pretty radical, per se, Second Amendment bills. But I think there is a point to be made that there is a lot of data that gun control would work. I think that we can't deny that as Republicans. If anyone's ever seen that famous Jim Jeffries bit on gun control, you look it up on YouTube. It's hilarious, but I think it emphasizes the only real argument for gun control, which is we want our guns, we get the right to keep our guns because it's in the Constitution. And so, but yeah, I mean, I'm sure you have so much data, and I don't discredit the data. I think it's accurate, but I also think we have this pesky little Constitution with this pesky little Second Amendment that specifically says the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be
That's not what
infringed.
it says.
It's the full thing it says, because I feel
That's
like
not what it says.
I knew you were going to say this. So
It's the right of a
I-
well-regulated
no,
militia.
the well-regulated militia is not a part of the right. So here's the thing. The full text is: a well-regulated militia being necessary for the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. The well-regulated militia part, that's the reason for the right. The right exists because at that time, as in the founding fathers' time, the people would organize in organized militias, and they needed their weapons to do that. That's why the Second Amendment exists. But the right itself is the right of the people to keep and bear arms. Where I will concede, though, where I don't think most Republicans would concede, but where I will concede, is the right itself deals specifically with ownership and possession. It does not deal with manufacturing or building of weapons. In theory, there could be an assault weapons ban, and it could be
on the
constitutional
manufacturer side.
on the
I know. That's
manufacturing
always
and
been my
commercial side.
position.
Yeah. But if you own one, they can't take it away from you,
Sure.
because that's the Second Amendment. And I would honestly support legislation like that as long as it clearly defined what those weapons were.
Manufacturer.
Yeah. was clearly defined. Because I mean, maybe we shouldn't have people spraying those type of bullets.
Spraying elementary schools.
Yes,
maybe.
exactly. I mean,
So my thing is actually, just all the data that shows us, now we have gun violence being the leading cause of death for children and teens in this country. That's horrifying. It is more likely that you will be successfully kill yourself through suicide, homicide, domestic violence. You are something like 14 times more likely to die in a domestic violence situation if there's a weapon in the home. It's these types of things that make me worry about what happens when we have constitutional carry. Anybody can have it. And what's going to happen? We're also going to see a market uptick in accidental shootings, and that's been happening a ton too. Somebody has a weapon that's unsecured. We saw a 5-year-old kill his 1-year-old sister just up in Tampa this week, and that type of stuff happens all the time because people are not careful with their weapons.
That's
right?
true. Yeah.
So, I was a Moms Demand candidate. I support common sense gun legislation, which includes background checks, requirements of having safes and your security for your weapons, right? And I think that these will help keep us safe. I mean, I also am a proponent of a manufacturing ban because I think that we absolutely can do that at the federal level because you can determine what can be sold.
Manufacture and sale. We can regulate interstate commerce as well as the federal level, and it could be regulated interstate at the state level.
Yeah.
And so if you look at the Constitution from the textualist standpoint, what the text actually says, the right really only deals with the right of an individual to own a firearm. It technically doesn't specify what type of firearm. It's why, for example, people can't own nuclear weapons.
Right. Well, there you go. Like, where are we going to draw the line? So we are coming to time here. One thing I did want to ask on this is Ron DeSantis going to veto it for open carry?
Veto?
He's talking about vetoing that and having a special session for open carry.
What?
You haven't heard that?
I did not hear that. Why would he? That sounds so stupid.
I don't know.
Does he think that
the constitutional carry is not good enough?
Wait, so
I guess we will see.
Wait, hang on. So I thought open carry was there's already legislation being proposed now. So there isn't, and he's wanting to do a separate session. That's
what I heard, that if the constitutional carry, you're right, but if full open carry does not happen, he will veto the constitutional carry and open a special session for it. That is what I heard. I don't know.
If he does that, that's stupid. One, just first off, take the win. If we can't get open carry this session, we can't get open carry. Take the freaking win.
Take the win.
Take the win. And then two, you do this and it doesn't go through. It just makes you, right when you're about to run for president, like you're delaying, constitutional carry and Second Amendment rights.
But I think listen, it could be a strategy to keep session going.
That's true too.
So he could keep this forefront.
That's a good point too.
I almost think I'm going to do a little prediction and then we should cut it off here.
Yeah.
I think what he's going to do is he's going to put on a few special sessions here. He's going to delay his announcement as long as he can. And he keeps getting free media when he puts up these bills that are just the red meat. You know what I mean? The whole country's talking about him. So he could do that and just kind of keep it out, and then he can run.
It kind of reminds me when everyone was waiting for Biden to announce, and everyone just like following him, and we all knew he was going to announce. Yep. But they were like, the media was like on his every word when he was ever going anywhere. Yep. So you're right. That is a good point. It wouldn't surprise me. It would be an interesting strategy, and he's already raising money for his super PAC and everything. So it's not like he's limited in that.
Yep.
But
we'll see after Easter. So we have a couple weeks here.
I have a couple
legislation session. Is that legislative sessions in session?
I will be watching what gets passed. I actually, I'll be watching what gets passed, and we'll see what happens there. I'm super excited after Easter to start doing this every week.
Every week. We'll have lots to talk about for sure.
Oh,
we went over an hour today. No problem.
Did we really? Oh, of course we did.
Yes, I did. So thank you so much for joining us here for a Democrat and Republican Walk in the Bar. I'm Dr. Cindy Banier. Been here with.
I'm Sean Hartman, wearing my Byron Donalds shirt, probably not representing him well with some of the positions.
Burn it in the parking lot. Anyway.
I'm sure him and his team is not super happy with me.
Super stoked with this show.
I know. Yeah. No, I'm like, no, not only that, me over here talking about trans rights and everything.
Oh, all the things. So, but yeah, thank you. Make sure that you're subscribing.
Right.
I'll
We
buy
actually
different
have-
shirts.
So definitely check us out. You can subscribe to the audio podcast wherever you get your podcast, whether it's Audible, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio. We got it all. You can go to the Big Mouth Media website, bigmouthmediafl.com. That's where, if you want all of the content, you want to come here, you want to be like Crystal and get on camera, you got to be one of our subscribers. And you do that through the Big Mouth Media prices and plans page and get that subscription in $2.99 a month. But that
Gotta go up.
$29.99 a year will get you a full year before the prices go up. So act now. Thanks
Yep.
so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time, the first Sunday after Easter. Bye
And
bye.
enjoy your Easter break, guys.
Happy Easter, everyone. Be blessed. Thanks.
Yay.